Wait a minute.
Neuralink. Do you know about Neuralink?
No.
So there's another. Elon Musk also owns another company called Neuralink. It is going to be. They're developing systems to directly connect our brain with our computers and the internet.
That's a bad idea, dude.
So that we can directly interface with not only computers, but eventually other human beings mentally. So, in theory, that could lead us to the point of, like, there wouldn't be any, like, if we get to that point.
Right in a minute.
If we get to that point, there's not going to be any, like, you would know what the person's thinking at all times. There would be no bullshit walls up. It will be if that happens, like, I don't think you could release that. You couldn't realistically, you couldn't say the technology was available tomorrow, right?
Okay.
And it was free. Just even though it won't be, but let's pretend it is. First, you couldn't just release that into the public and have everybody like put one on or install it instantaneously.
Show.
Think of the social chaos that would happen if you just turned it on like that. If there was no lies about anything, everyone could literally see or think what another person was thinking, like hear or see what that person's
Interpret another person's thoughts
in real time.
Bad idea.
What would that do to social? Like, I think over the course of like 200 or 300 years, maybe less. I mean, probably less because we are accelerating on such an insane level of technology, and we do a decent job of like adapting.
Yeah, exactly, Josh.
Like, so.
Or
eventually it'll be good, but I think at start it's going to be insane. But it's a real company that really exists, has real people working there, and like he even talked about it on Joe Rogan.
One of the things that bothers me the most about that is we already see how algorithms work, and we see advertisements all over our email boxes, all over our social media, on our phones popping up based on stuff that we've searched. It already has an idea of things we're interested in.
It's only going to keep going down that path.
It's disgusting. And realistically, it's like Idiocracy. Pretty soon, Gatorade is going to be the only drink that we drink, and Taco Bell is going to be the only place where anybody gets any food.
I'm hoping that we can see those things and avoid some of those things, like some of the obvious things.
I pray.
I hope. It depends on, like, I think it'll greatly depend upon how quickly, at what scale and how quickly you want it to be. Like, I would love to interface with a computer with my brain. I would sign up to do that, I think. Once I thought the technology was at a point where it was safe to do, or at least somewhat safe to do. Yeah, there's always going to be a risk.
Just the thought of that scares me, because who's going to be able to see that?
Yeah,
you know?
For sure. I mean,
if that's the case, if your computer can read all of your thoughts, who can access your computer? That's frightening.
Personally, I've given up on the idea of privacy for the most part. I mean, there's some level, but I also think about, like, okay.
But human nature gives us, and this is where it comes down to the little cartoons that we all see as kids, with the devil on one shoulder, the angel in the other. Temptation is a real thing. Oh, for sure. We all have these thoughts that manifest, and it's whether or not we act upon these thoughts. That's whether or not we're giving in to temptation, whatever you want to call it.
That's that's where we are going to have to adapt as humans, or hybrid of humans, because I think eventually, like, the human race is going to become something else in not that different of a future, or not that far out,
not that distant.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to take 1,000 years. I think potentially, depending on technologies over the next decade or two, or a few decades past that, we may end up becoming like a Borg type of thing, like to a degree. I think we won't be quite as. My hope is we won't become quite as machine-like, a sense of like very.
That's when we're all going to get serial numbers, the mark of the beast.
Well, I mean, we already do. We have social security numbers. Can't do shit without those. I mean, it's just a way to track and there's good things to that kind of like thing. Like you want to have some accountability from people. There's good and bad from both of those. So you have to kind of weigh the two options like with anything. So it's interesting. Like the technology advances could lead us down a lot of different paths with AI, with all kinds of things, and I think we will become almost part machine in some fashion. I don't know how much free will we have is really like one of the things that'll kind of scare me down the road. Like obviously I don't think it'll affect us. We'll be long gone before it becomes a real problem, like in that sense. I mean, unless some sort of singularity happens before.
I don't know, man. I think the world's going to destroy itself before humanity becomes that advanced.
I don't know. I guess that would be another, depending on one's point of view and beliefs, that would be almost a destruction in itself.
Right.
So it could be super interesting. That kind of thing could lead us to be able to live long enough to travel to other stars. Like those kind of technologies and interfacing systems where if we could interface with our own brain and computers, what's to, at that point, with other advanced computing technologies to stop our aging process? Because like if we can stop the destruction of our degradation of our cells when they separate and split and do their thing, that's going to give us the opportunity to essentially live for much longer, or if not forever. There's probably an upper limit, but we could foreseeably live thousands of years. You know, if we can get a few of those technologies.
I think we need to get our climate issues under control first.
I think those things will lead to it, like because the computing power.
I hope you're right. I really hope you're right.
So another upside of that is I think most people in the world are a reasonable person. They kind of sit in the middle of most things, right? You would probably say like, as far as beliefs and generally, I mean, there's always the extremes. But if say you had,
that's for tomorrow.
If all of humanity was connected to one server and they're one connected to the internet essentially, we would be able to see all kinds of things, and I think we would our brains and our knowledge base as a general person, as for everybody, would increase because we would have access to information at such a much higher pace. You know what I mean? Potentially,
right?
That we may be able to. That might be one of the things that could solve some of the major things like climate change, major problems that we have in society by interfacing with computers. Because with that and like advanced computing technologies, that we literally it could lead to some great things. Anyway, getting off into philosophical crazy land right now.
Yeah, well, that's what we do.
Seems like a trust beyond trust to let them into your mind physically. Yeah. I mean, but I think it's probably an eventuality. They'll probably push back when technology becomes available, of course. But I think with anything, there's always been pushback. Like cell phones came out, and there's pushback on that, and then smartphones came out. Just one technology, like they just ease it in. You just ease it in, and then people become more and more okay with it.
Ease it in. That sounds like something that Matt Lowe would say.
Right.
With a lot of lube.
I mean, we all have Facebook accounts. We all agreed to have all that information. Like we willingly put our lives out there for everyone anyway. I mean, it's really not. There's some level of like separation, of course, but it just follow the progress. The progression that we've already followed over the last 30 years.
That's also for tomorrow.